Good afternoon, everyone. I am Sig Hutchinson, one of your county commissioners, and we are so thrilled to have everyone on our webinar and our call. It's a beautiful day in North Carolina. It reminds us all why we all came here, live here in present tense, and nobody's interested in moving because it's just so beautiful. So we have a great show here lined up for you with two of my favorite school board members and just friends in general. We have Roxie Cash running for school board in District 3 and Heather Scott running in District 1. Y'all wave, let everyone know. There we are. Okay, super. Helping us on the call today, we have Cindy Stranded and Mike Goss with Articulon. So we really appreciate their help. They are wonderful in communication and have helped me for, oh my goodness, how many years, Cindy? 20, 25?
8, 10.
Just seems like 20. So we're going to have a good time today. We're going to be talking to Roxie and Heather. Give you all a chance to sign in through the chat and ask any questions that you would like. The way the format of the show today is I'm going to be offering a bio on both Roxie and Heather, followed by comments from both Roxie and Heather. And then at that point, I've got a few questions I'm going to ask. And then after that, please feel free to add any questions that you might have from the chat. So starting with Roxie Cash, who I have known my entire life here in Wake County. I got here in '84. Roxie got here in 1986. What brought her to Wake County was the work, but what kept her here were these amazing schools that we have in our Wake County public school system. She has 4 children, all who I might say are incredibly successful, who had their careers, early careers through the Wake County public school system. And now Roxie is proud to say she's got 10 grandchildren with the 11th on the way in March. This is her second run as on the Wake County public school system board. Her first run was from 1991 to 1999. And as well as her children have attended both traditional, magnet, as well as year-round type schools. Now she came back on the board in 2016. So we were laughing about it earlier today. So she's been a Wake County school board member for 12 years. Yes, absolutely. So, seems like 20, right?
Yes, yeah, at least.
There you go. All right. So Roxie, by profession as a pharmacist, works in a hospital and at the cancer centers, and enjoys her career in oncology. She believes in staying healthy. Church is extremely important to Roxie, as well as mission work, which is a real passion of hers. She builds her professional political career around transparency and responsiveness. And I am so, and Roxie is a dear, dear friend. So Roxie, we're so glad to have you on the webinar here today. Okay, now now we're going to get to Heather, and after Heather, then Roxie, we're going to throw it to you for your comments. Now, Heather Scott, running in District Number 1, moved to North Carolina in 2008. Heather has been a very strong advocate of public education, advocating at the General Assembly level and following the impact of legislation that was flowing through the General Assembly, as well as volunteering in schools. First elected in 2018, Heather chairs the Student Achievement Committee and serves on the Finance Committee. And Heather loves to visit schools in her district, which is Roseville, Zebulon, Wendell, Wake Forest, Knightdale, and portions of Raleigh. Now, the school board votes by district. So if you are in District 1, then you can vote for Heather. And if you're in District 3, you can vote for Roxie. By the way, Heather won the Mayor's Award for commitment to the community in 2019 in Knightdale. And she loves to host these community chats around District 1. So she's extremely good at staying connected with her constituency and being very responsive and answering those questions and needs that you have. Heather has been delightful to work with on issues that I've had, and I just can't say enough about her work within the Wake County public school system within her district and working with her constituency. She holds a Bachelor of Music and Education from Indiana University and has taught music, band, choir, pre-K, and classes in the public schools, private, charter schools from around the country. All right. She is a proud parent of 2 children, both who are currently in elementary school, Wake County Public School System. So we know that that is a very active household. In addition, Heather lives with her husband, 2 cats, and their golden retriever, Brinkley, and she loves serving on this board. So welcome, Heather. We're so glad to have you with us today.
Thank you.
All right, Roxie, let's throw it to you for opening comments. And then Heather, if you'll just take over after that, and then we'll start with some questions after that. Thank you.
Okay. Hey, thank you, Sig. Thank you, Sig and Articulon, because you guys have been so helpful in all that we do. I think what I want to say to start with is, like, Heather and I and Sig Hutchinson, we share something very common. We are very responsive to our community, and we love Wake County. We have been here a while, and we love Wake County, and I believe that, I think what we share is that our public school system and our county commissioners need to work very closely together in order to support what we do in our schools. I did come here in the 80s, and I had children here as I was on the board in the 90s. And now I have grandchildren here, and I have been very happy with all that Wake County Public Schools have done for us. The beauty of being here in the 90s was we actually had a very healthy school system as a whole, a very diversified school system, very healthy schools. The board in the 90s was very nonpartisan. I mean, there was very little polarizing our board during those days. And so we could do all good work based on a non-polarized community. I find that's a little different now, not necessarily bad, not necessarily good, a little harder to bring our ideas together, but still I think the commitment of both parties to do the right thing has been very strong in Wake County. I appreciate the fact that I get to work with our county commissioners like Sig Hutchinson and other of our county commissioners that have been very supportive of what we've done in Wake County. We do not have a budget that is being supported by our legislature. And therefore we have to struggle sometimes in our public school system to get extra money. And we've been very generously supported by our county commissioners. I believe that there are a lot of new things that are working with us and against us in public schools. However, competition is a good thing. So I do not shy away from competition. I think that the things that are hitting us now, such as COVID, are something that we never dreamed would happen. And as a health professional, I have seen it hit the hospitals very hard, and I understand what we're up against, but I still think that it's made us stronger. We're going to talk about some issues today that I think that are out there with both COVID, some of the things that we may face politically that is maybe a little more partisan than I would like it to be on our board, but we will talk about those issues that are facing us. I really mostly believe that a public school system has to be strong for a strong community. My children have become very successful because of what they have done and what they got to do in public schools. Wake County did a really good job helping them. I have grandchildren in there now, and with COVID, it's really hard to see them struggling with online learning. I have little grandchildren, so we are going to have to do the best we can to get them back into schools. I think that partnerships are important. I've always been very adamant about our transparency, our ability to work with partners. I do not believe that our school system can do everything by itself. Used to be that all of our municipalities were very involved with what the schools did, and I hope that we can continue to do that. We have to pull municipalities in. We're a large school system, and we have to do really well, if not better, pulling our municipalities together. So that would be one of the reasons I'm here tonight, and I'd like to do more town halls as we move further into this, and I'd like to continue those as we go throughout the next couple of years. Thank you.
Thank you, Roxie. That was wonderful. All right, Heather.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Sig. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you and Roxie today. I respect the two of you so much because of your people approach. You're very people-centered in the way you serve, and as a still kind of newly elected person, that's my value system as well. I always like to share this with people. I know Roxie's heard me say this a few times, but I always like to share my why, because I am a former teacher, and it's a quick story. I'll try to make it fast. But my first year of teaching was in a town, Greensburg, Indiana, a small southern Indiana town in between Indianapolis and Cincinnati. And it was a smaller rural city. Everybody knew each other, and it was a great opportunity. I still miss that community. But I taught general music and band from grades 5 through 8. And they had your traditional junior high school there, so grades 7 and 8. And our 7th graders were required to take a general music class if they weren't in band or chorus. And so I had a student in my general music class, and this is me as a first year teacher. You know, you have all these ideas like don't smile until January, or, you know, these different tips that you're given from people. And I had that at first, but really sort of warmed up to realizing that there were these students in my classroom that just came from such a variety, a full spectrum of backgrounds. One of my students was what we call a textbook passive resistant child. This student didn't do any work, they didn't turn in, they wouldn't complete anything, but they weren't a behavior problem. But I did some digging, and I wanted to find out, you know, what's going on. And I found out that this student's family, no one in his family had ever graduated from high school. And so that's how he was kind of treated, like, well, he's not a problem, so we'll just move him along. And that really bothered me. And I worked with him personally, you know, just like we were doing a worksheet, I would just circle, just do these two, and, you know, talk to him and got to know him. And he started to do a little bit of work for me. And one day, I remember this as clear as can be. I asked the class a question, and I looked out and I saw his hand raise, and I called on him, and he got the answer right. Yeah, that's great, good job. And after that, I ran down to the guidance counselor who knew I'd been working with this student. And I said, he raised his hand in my class, and we both just started crying. And I realized that was probably the first time in his career as a 7th grade student that he'd ever raised his hand in a class. And that demonstrated to me that there are so many barriers in place in front of children, and they didn't put them there. And so when we see them as adults, be it as teachers, as parents, as advocates, and as policymakers, we need to make sure we're effective at breaking those barriers down. And I have taken that why with me. That was in 1998, and I've taken that why with me all the way to serving in what I do here. There are 28 schools in District 1, and I'm really proud to say that I've been in every single one of them, and I have had the opportunity to get to know these schools, the communities inside and outside. I've spent a lot of time. Roxie was talking about the importance of our municipalities, and she knows that I've, you know, really invested the time to speak to leaders in our municipalities in District 1. Historically, they have felt like they're not as heard, and that people don't think about them as much as they do because they're remote, and because we usually do things in the western part and go to Durham. And so it was really important to me to say, no, you are just as important. You have values, you have concerns, you have needs that might look a little different, and I'm going to amplify those at the board table. And I feel like I have been doing just that since even before being sworn in. I've been in these schools as much as possible. And I know that there are some questions that I'll be able to elaborate on that. So again, I love these schools with every ounce of my heart and soul. It's been an honor to serve them, and I look forward to answering some questions. Thank you.
Heather, that was delightful, and it's just we can hear the passion in your voice and your love for the school system. So it's great to have you running and serving, as well as you, Roxie. It's just so important. We've got one of the best public school systems in the country today, and it's because of great leaders such as yourself. All right, so we've got some questions here. I'm going to start off with some. If anyone on the call has a question you'd like to pose to Roxie or Heather, please just put it in the chat, and we'll start with the first one. You know, we're in a COVID environment, as we know, and so the question is, how are we preparing for COVID? And what precautions are we putting in place to make sure that our teachers and students and families are safe? Who wants to start? Roxie? And you're on mute right now.
Oh, Heather, you want to start and I can follow you.
Okay. So the question was what kind of safety precautions we are taking. And that is a great question. I'm not sure if people are aware, but in the beginning of June is when the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services submitted their work, and then DPI also submitted frameworks and protocols and guidelines for school systems to follow when they reopen. And so, of course, because COVID is a new thing, it is truly a novel virus. Our health professionals and scientists are all, figuring this out as we progress. So some of that framework, some of those protocols and guidelines and information has changed. Just as we all recall, at first we heard don't wear masks, and then we heard we should wear masks, and we know that's true. So please wear your mask. But so the protocols and guidelines have changed. So it's important to acknowledge that we've had to shift a little. But we do have safety plans in place, and we've given a lot of opportunity for people to access those in different ways. So on our school intranet, on the teachers have the opportunity to review different documents that describe processes. Principals also have that. We have a COVID coordinator at each school. So somebody who is definitely taking the time to read through all of these documents and read through the information, and they can be sort of the go-to person at each school site. So if someone has questions, there should be someone at the school who's really taking the time as an extra duty, unpaid extra duty at that, but who's really well-versed in the safety protocols. We also, for families, have been publishing a return to school guide. It's a separate website that you can access through the WCPSS.net main page that has frequently asked questions in a written form that is also translated into several different languages. And we also have videos now. So if you're a visual learner, like I am, then you'll be able to watch a video and see, well, what should I expect for lunch? What should I expect for walking to the halls? What is it going to look like when I get into the building? So those are some of the main things that we've done, I think, in terms of providing plans and learning opportunities for teachers, different webinars with doctors and scientists who explain what to expect and, what are the real issues at hand. So I'm not going to talk, I'm going to let Roxie sort of pick up from there and talk about some of the PPE and maybe some of the facility things that are happening. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Heather. I think that if you look on our intranet or on our webpage, you'll see a lot of information about reopening schools, but it has a lot of information. For example, if you had a positive COVID, and since I do work as a pharmacist in a large hospital, how you respond to a positive COVID may not always be exactly like you think it should be. It's not a reactive, quick tell everybody what you see. It's more of a very well thought out plan by the Department of Health Services. I'm very impressed with the Department of Health Services through Wake County. I'm very impressed with Mandy Cohen, who is our state, the state person that we listen to as far. And also, I'm really happy with what Kelly Creech in the Wake County Public School System tells people and how we respond to a positive COVID. It is a well thought out plan, and it is very laid out. on who you tell and who you notify and how they notify a school. They notify a school, but then they also notify the Department of Health Services, will notify the very people that have been actually exposed. As though if you have active COVID in a school, it usually never means that everybody has been exposed to it. So it's very carefully planned. We have thought about that. And what I have seen is exactly what I see in the hospitals now. And I feel very good about how our hospitals are handling, such as Wake Med is doing a great job where I work as a pharmacist. There are some areas on there that talk about PPE. I feel like the PPE that we have gotten in our school system is what we feel comfortable with. It is what is best fit to the personnel, to the children. A few of our schools have already started on virtually on asking parents and the caregivers to have their children wear their masks now at home. A little harder for K2, but as I see some of our K2 and K3 kids going into daycares or mainly going into the YMCA programs and FAST, they have done a really good job of learning what is safe, what is distance, what is mask, what is washing hands, all the things that are important. But when we go back to school in a transitional way, I think what we're going to see our teachers teach our children is how to do that, and not be necessarily worried about how school used to be, but it's a new school. And I think all the criteria that we've given on our website is very important. If anyone has trouble on a website, such as the Wake County Public School System website, I think that both Heather and I are very open to you reaching out to us, and we can show you how to navigate that. But at this point, I feel like we've done everything that we can to make this the best transition.
Wonderful, wonderful. All right, Roxie, we're going to go to you on this next question first, and then Heather will follow up with you. So, Roxie, I know you've been involved with a lot of food security issues. So the question is, food security is such an issue now with our kids, particularly a lot of the COVID situation. So what are we doing to make sure that our kids and their families are getting enough food to eat?
So as Sig Hutchinson and Matt Calabria well know, and Heather as well, that we've been very involved in that. The four of us have been very involved in food security in Wake County. We have approximately 51,000 free and reduced children in Wake County that need food as well as their families do. At this point, the Wake County Public School System is doing all that they can possibly do by having a lot of sites at their schools, as well as pop-up buses that go to certain neighborhoods. But even though we are trying so hard, we're only probably reaching about 20,000 of our 51,000 students. So with the help of some of our nonprofits in Wake County, we have identified through student assignment at least maybe 30,000 of the 31,000 that we have left to reach, which is a significant amount. Now, whether we've identified them or not doesn't mean we can actually get to them with funding. However, we have worked really hard, and the Wake County Commissioners have funded a great amount of that to continue that. There's been some private donations from some of our nonprofits that have worked as well very hard on that. And the USDA as well as DPI has tried to work with us to do that. We have so many holes still in Wake County. And as recently in North Carolina, the USDA actually dropped all of the sites for produce boxes, which is very unusual. And I think as you reach out to your Washington legislation, they need to be aware of that. I don't know that they're totally aware of it, but right now, all of our sites are getting no produce anymore. All of our nonprofits that were delivering that have nothing to take to them. So now we are now at the 18,000 or 20,000 kids that we are still working with in Wake County Public Schools. We have a lot to do. we have an awful lot to do, and it's going to take the whole community to work on that.
Heather, you have anything to add?
I think that was a pretty comprehensive answer, but I do just want to express my gratitude for the community partners. You know, when I was first running for school board in 2018, I acknowledged the importance of valuing public-private you know, partnerships and partnerships with nonprofits, and it's complicated to you know, to be involved in those, but it's absolutely necessary. I mean, our partners in the community exist for a reason. And so finding that balance is important, but it's something we have to do. We have to find that balance. So I've been extremely thankful to the partners who've reached out, private citizens who reach out, who are just wanting to help. And I think that demonstrates what an amazing place Wake County is to live. You know, people are passionate here about topics, but they care so deeply about each other, and you know, that's a great part of Wake County. So I think continuing to monitor the numbers of children who are accessing our you know, we're grateful for the extension from the federal government to have the reimbursements for our breakfast and lunch for all students, for all children. And I think we're going to have to continue to monitor that access and compare that to previous numbers, because you know, that could demonstrate there's a need that we don't see, a need that we need to identify and then address that. But Roxie gave a pretty great answer.
Perfect, Heather. And let me just give a shout out to our good friend Chris Haggerty, who is on the call today and from District 7. So Chris, he's also running for Wake County School Board member. So Chris, we're glad to have you on the call. All right, Heather, let's take it to you the first time for this next call. It's something I know you feel very passionate about. So what are some of the things that you have advocated for or feel proud about and feel like you've accomplished as a school board member?
I appreciate that question. What, you know, a lot of concerns I had when serving on the board were you know, what are we looking at here? These are schools that might have had you know, lower school letter grades, and these are things that I wondered about. You know, what am I going to see? And that was something I was curious before I went into the buildings, and was really you know, happy for that opportunity, because when I walked into these school buildings, I saw amazing, authentic learning taking place every day. And I think most people are aware that standardized test scores, I mean, if you overlap the number of students experiencing poverty, you are going to see lower standardized test scores, and that is true pretty much anywhere in the United States. So to address some of that, though, we recognize the importance of reading. And while there may be some interesting things about the read to achieve, the intent behind that is absolutely important. We have to have our students reading. And there have been some intentional changes made to our K-2 reading curriculum, where we have expanded Letterland to 2nd grade. And that's, you know, that's an intentional change. We've been able to pilot this, the new EL curriculum in some of our schools in District 1. And they have shown some really positive response, a lot of student engagement. Teachers are feeling good about the results they're seeing in their students. We also have Partners Read, which is a great, when we talk about public-private partnerships, we actually have an education advocacy group in Eastern Wake called the K-12 Education Alliance of Eastern Wake. And they actually have helped sponsor to bring in Partners Read to help purchase the books, because there is a cost involved with that to purchase books that students get to keep. But one of our elementary schools in District 1, the students who participated in this Partners Read, which takes place outside of the school day, it's a volunteer program. But there were 15 first grade students, and this was when we were still using M-class reading assessments, and they were all in the red for one of their metrics. And 12 or 13, I need to double check the number, but the majority of the students were in the green at the end of that program. I mean, so phenomenal results. And so that is one of the reasons why I'm proud of these, building up these partnerships and opening up the pathways and working to connect our schools with our business community and being open and receptive when people want to come in. East Wake High School has one of our new academies. The Academy of Life Science is now at East Wake High School. And that's another great program that I think all of our students who participate in these career academies have phenomenal results. That's just opening up this great partnerships with Wake Tech and Wake Med as those expand to Eastern Wake. The partial PRIMP program is something that I'm really thankful that our facilities department heard the board, because this board member was pretty loud about some of the facility issues in Eastern Wake with older buildings. And so we have our partial renovation and improvement plan where we're able to reallocate funds within the capital improvement plan without needing a new funding request. And they can address things that may not necessarily need a full renovation or a replacement, and be able to work on targeted areas to bring up some of those schools to the same standards that we expect throughout the county. So those are just a couple of the things that I'm proud of. And that's also the result of actually going into those buildings, getting to know those communities and listening to them.
In answer to that question, I want to piggyback on what Heather Scott said about schools that need renovation. In the 90s, which is 100 years ago, I think, to most people, when I was on the board, we were in a very fast growing area in North Wake. The north part of Raleigh was growing very fast, much like Western Wake is now. And I believe that some of the things that we were up against was, how are we going to build new schools for a lot of new people coming, but still keep our renovation projects going in some of the older schools. We were very in tune with magnet schools at that point, and magnets were very important to us because they were going to be what kept all schools healthy and diverse. One of the things we got involved in, of course, in the 90s was year-round education, multi-tracking schools. It was not necessarily for the reason for a better program or anything that the calendar helped, except it gave us capacity in our schools and saved us some money in our building programs for those schools that were aging. So I felt like, as I came back on the board in 2016, we were actually building a lot of new schools in Western Wake and not doing enough multi-track schools, because that used money for new schools. That was, as we kept building new schools, we were just chasing the growth, and therefore schools in Heather's district and my district were not necessarily getting the renovation projects that they needed to make them appealing for people. I feel like I worked really hard in the Northridge area and the West Millbrook area to bring projects back online that had been kind of put off because of the building program going for new growth. And I feel like that was one thing I want us to continue to do. Heather and I share that passion as far as making all of our schools, buildings safe, as well as appealing for people that want to be there. So that's one of the things that I think we need to work harder on, looking at how we're going to multi-track some of our schools in high growth areas so that we can save our money in our building program. The other thing that I feel that that I stood for before, and I want to continue to, and as we're larger, I think that principals are the leaders of our schools. And I feel like, are we listening to them? And I think even on a recent vote for reopening schools, we got a lot of information late at the 9th hour prior to the board meeting. And to me, the principals are the leaders of our schools. And if we don't have what they want first, we probably are not doing the best thing for our schools. So again, going back to how we can best communicate with our principals and how our central office is communicating with our principals. Finally, one of the things, of course, well, maybe two more things. I'm the financial chair of our finance committee, the chair of our finance committee. It's very important for me to try to be as transparent as possible with our budget. However, our budget is very difficult to read. It's not necessarily because of the budget process. It's mainly because of the amount of funding things that come to us based on whether it comes from the state or local or county commissioners. So it's a hard budget to understand, but it's my job to try to make that understandable to the public. And finally, I do want to re-energize our magnet program. Our magnet program has taken a few hits of maybe too many programs for what we're trying to do. If a magnet does not serve the purpose of a community as the county, as a whole county, then we're not necessarily doing the magnet schools a service. So that is another area I'd like to spend more time on. So those are some of the areas that I'd like to focus on.
Great, Roxie. Another great answer, as well as you, Heather. Heather, you got a shout out from a parent in Wendell who appreciates your focus on Eastern Wake. And for Roxie and Heather both, we have a question from one of our attendees who say, could both of you expand on what are some of the factors you're considering when looking forward to second semester for schools K through 12? Who wants to start?
I can start. We will be talking about that actually on Tuesday at the work session. We will be talking about some of the issues as we move forward. However, I think we're going to have to make some very quick plans. We don't want to be slow about this. Of course, as a school system in Wake County, a public school, as well as a charter school, we will have to follow the mandates of the governor. Unlike private schools does not have to follow any mandates by the governor, as well as there's some things with certified teachers that we have to have in place. I would like to, of course, see as many kids back into school as we can safely do. High school, very difficult animal to work with. I love high schoolers. I love everything about them. However, they are a little harder to get to do all the things that they need to do for safe distancing. As we talk to our high school students, and they have to realize that school's not the same. It will not be the same for probably the rest of the year. It will not be a school where you can walk in and high five your friend or hug them and things like that. It'll be very different. And so, as though I know high schoolers want that interaction, I want them to also understand it's going to be different. We are going to have to take our plan and stick with it. We're going to have to come out with a plan and be bold about it. And we're going to have to move forward with our plan and not do any changes unless the governor tells us or unless the metrics change it.
And I think what Roxie shared is really important. I agree that we do need to share it now so that our a plan for high school, especially so that our principals can adjust to that. I know that all of our principals at the high school level had been working to assign cohorts. I'm not sure if folks realize how complicated, even in non-COVID times, the master schedule is for our high schools. In fact, irony is not the right word, but all of the things that make our comprehensive high schools and our middle schools so amazing, with the rich opportunity and diverse electives and all these different courses that make it such a great place to learn, are actually making it extremely complicated to work with the distancing required and the cohorts that we've chosen for our plans. And it makes it very hard to do. But I don't know that I could expand any more than that for, we've got to just, this is what we're doing. This is what we're moving forward. And we also need to be open to feedback from from our principals who are ideally listening to their teachers and having this opportunity for feedback, and also importantly to listen to feedback from parents, because even if we can't necessarily change a whole plan to accommodate them, there are other supports we can put in place. I'm always confident as a parent of a child who has an IEP, things may not be exactly the way I'd want them to be, but they sure do work to provide supports to address those specific needs. And I think that's something we need to continue to be fluid. We really do want to serve every child every day. And this is one of those times where it's challenging, but I'm confident that we are going to keep our families as safe as possible and keep working to provide the education that our students deserve.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you, Heather. All right. So, Roxie, let's throw it back to you for this question. And that is that, CROs is a big issue now in our schools, and a lot of people are talking about that. So basically, what are your thoughts about removing or replacing CROs in our schools, and why do you feel that way?
Okay, thank you. So there's a couple ways to call these people. We actually call them SROs. There are some CROs, but we're calling them security resource officers. It's become a really big topic right now. I was on the board in the 90s when we actually had our SROs that became a part of our community, and it had to do with a couple issues that actually happened in a few of our schools. I'm a big supporter, as I've been very vocal about, for keeping SROs in our high schools and probably our middle schools. I would like to keep them in both. I would like for our principals to be a big part of that discussion. I think that a principal is the one that's responsible for the safety of their schools, and they need to have everything, all the tools that they want to have. And I don't feel like central office can bypass that. I don't feel like a board of education can bypass that. I think a leader in a high school, a principal, assistant principals need to be the ones to know what is safest for their school. I do not want to replace our SROs. I do not want to remove our SROs. Now, if I want to complement that with some programs to help with de-escalation in our schools, I will be glad to put some money towards that. However, most of our SROs are supported by the municipalities, and that is funding that won't be replaced in another program. I do believe in de-escalation of situations before an SRO is involved. I think that most of our high schools use their SROs appropriately. If an SRO is not used appropriately by a high school administrator, then that is one issue. And I certainly wouldn't stereotype all of our SROs by a couple bad situations. So I am totally in support of keeping SROs in our schools.
And to add to that, right now the school board is working with the school safety and security committee, which is examining the memorandum of understanding. So the MOU, if you ever hear about that, that is the document that defines the roles of SROs within our schools, and it's an agreement with the municipalities and the sheriff's department on, where is your lane, basically, what is the role of an SRO? And this is a document that I think is the most important document to put in place language where this role can be clearly defined. This did not happen in Wake County Public Schools, but I think a lot of people have seen footage of a officer in a different part of North Carolina who'd been working with an autistic boy and had restrained the boy and was just saying things that were out of line to the child. And I think that was a very important way to recognize the importance of having that MOU, that memorandum of understanding. And Roxie is absolutely right. When principals, our high school principals, I don't know of a single one who doesn't value their SRO, and at least the high schools in my district, where I have a much stronger relationship with those principals, I know them much better. I mean, their SROs they have established relationship with these students. They tutor some of the students. They're in and out of the community, and kids like them. And it's interesting too that some of these SROs have suggestions for how we could make it even better. And that's, that's based on clear policy, clear-cut roles, and should a problem occur, there needs to be a clear line of this is how you do, these are the steps that you follow to report this, and an understanding for all stakeholders. So personally, I need to understand the lived experience of some of our students and who may view law enforcement differently than I do based on my lived experience. It's important to listen to those, but I think there's a common thread and a common understanding. There are so many other reasons to value that relationship with our school resource officers. One of our, who's a former high school principal said it best that you may not always need an SRO, 99.6% of the time, but that 0.4% of the time you need them, you absolutely need them. So I think, Roxie, listening to our principals and all stakeholders is important, and we just need to really shape that policy, which is what we're working on because it expires next summer.
Great answer, Heather and Roxie. And I apologize. I think I said CROs rather than SROs, but y'all knew what I was talking about, which is good. Everybody on the call knew what I was talking about, so I apologize for
No
that.
problem.
So, all right. So we're going to finish up with the last question. And after the question, Heather and Roxie, if you have any final comments that you'd like to make, then please do that. And then we'll close out and thank everyone for being here. So, these are trying times, as we all know, and with our COVID situation. And we know that there are times where kids are out on remote learning. And so the question is, what do parents do during this remote learning? And are there some programs out there for kids to take advantage of in remote learning that you can tell us about that could help them? Or are there just anything that is going on that can help parents in this trying situation that we find ourselves in? So I'm sorry, where are we? Heather, why don't you go ahead and get started?
Sure, and and I'm sorry because I was also reading a question in the chat as well. But the supporting students during remote learning, this has absolutely been, this I think is extremely personal. Where we've got our counselors who can work with individual students where things might be popping up, helping walk a parent through the Canvas app or Canva app, where they can figure out where's my student, or understanding PowerSchool, understanding how to access Google Classroom. And so I think those are big parts to helping parents, because there is a lot more responsibility on parents right now than there has been. A lot of the work that students are turning in virtually are often assignments that would have been completed in class. And so there's a lot more on our responsibility on our families and our caregivers who have students in their homes. So I know that that's really an individual basis, our counselors working with them. I know that Wake County has also worked hard to provide additional supports for mental health and making sure that families know where they can have access, because this is a really hard time emotionally and for mental health for our students and our parents and elderly and people who are isolated. I mean, it's truly a difficult time. But I think that most of our counselors have been able to address those needs. I mentioned earlier that one of my children has an IEP. Their special education teacher checks in on them every day. So every day they have a check-in. So those are some of those. I think it's very individualized right now, but I do think that most of people are going above and beyond to meet those needs.
I do see what you're looking at, Heather, as far as like in the chat. There was a comment about Combs Elementary Leadership Program, which, as my grandkids go to Combs, so therefore, I know that Meredith Summers Leadership Program gives them an amazing ability for those children to choose traits that work well in many difficult situations in our community. So I want to applaud that school, as many of our schools, but Thank you for that comment, because I do believe the leadership program at Combs by Muriel Summers and her staff has done well for these kids getting ready. I have watched a few of those with my grandkids already, and those kids, and I think my second grade grandchild, in fact, knows it better than I mean, of course they know it better than I do, but we have worked really hard in Wake County, I think, with the help of our county commissioners and with the YMCA and the Boys and Girls Club and Marbles and other agencies, to work with the YMCA to develop what is called the FAST program for the working parents in our community. The FAST program has been fairly successful, I think very successful. They're actually subsidizing all children of any working parent, whether they classify for any other subsidy or anything. So it is putting kids in programs to help them navigate through our virtual learning. Virtual learning is so hard for parents that have, especially K-3, which is what we're focusing on right now to bring back into school, is K-3. Those small children do not have any opportunity to actually know how to navigate a computer well, but our teachers are doing an amazing job trying to do that. We have to continue to offer childcare for our working parents. We have to continue to try to subsidize that. We have to continue to be able to offer FAST program for our teachers that will now be going back to school and teaching full time. And therefore we have that program set up for all the children of our teachers that will be free to our teachers. So we realize that children at home on virtual learning is really hard for them, both interactive wise and as well as for the parents that are trying to do many things, whether they have small children, teach, or work. So this is not far from our radar. It's something we look at every day, as well as our school being back in session. We look at how our kids going to handle remote, but even more so, it's going to be really hard on our teachers to teach remote and in person. So we have to figure out how to resource that.
Thank you, Roxie. And we just for the rest of our attendees, we had a last minute question from one of our attendees that Roxie spoke to and Heather spoke to just a little bit. It's basically talking about AB Combs, which is an amazing school and a leadership magnet elementary school, and talking about their systems to promote social and emotional learning that supports resiliency and academic success. So, which is amazing. So let me just push it to Heather and Roxie for any final comments that you would like to make regarding the question or just in general, and then we'll close things out.
So I would just like to end with the fact that I think we need to do more of these virtual town halls. I think Heather and I would like to work on that continued, and I love the fact that SIG and Articulon is helping us. I appreciate that. Now, I'd love to have SIG in every one of them. I don't know whether he'll do that or not, but I think that as we move forward for the next couple years, there's going to be a lot of things facing us as we run into the gap that may have been caused already by virtual learning. And I think we're going to face some things in that respect, as well as our resources that we have for public education. We have a lot of reasons that public education is important. I also support choices, but I want to be sure that it's a level playing ground for all choices that we make in Wake County. So I want to thank everybody that joined tonight. I want to thank everybody that continues to reach out to me through the hundreds of emails I get. They are not a problem. I really hope that I can respond to as many as possible, but I read every one of them, and I know Heather does too. And I feel like the community as a whole, we are here to try to work with everybody. And so continue to send us your information, and hopefully we can do this again.
Thanks. And I do want to point out that the leadership, the Leader in Me program at A.B. Combs is actually used also, bits and pieces are used in some of our schools in Eastern Wake, and actually Lake Myra follows that. Sig, I don't know if you've ever made it to one of their Leader in Me days, but it is, you got to bring some tissues to see these kindergartners walking around the gym, just singing these songs, and the way students greet you when you go into the building. And, you know, and that's a traditional public school. It's not a magnet school, but they still implement that program. So it's another unique way that we can, that we do use these programs throughout Wake County. I agree with Roxie. I really valued the community chats that I made available, or that I offered in, you know, pre-COVID, and also the board advisory council meetings. So there's something Roxie and I really both, we in fact did one together, and we're hoping to do more. But honestly, that was the one we did was so well attended. We need a big space. But that's because we've got, you know, stakeholders who know we're here. You know, another thing that I pride myself on is how available I try to make myself to everyone. I've driven across the county to talk to parents who were concerned about a curriculum, go to listen to teachers after hours when they have a concern, you know, I'll call parents on the weekend. You know, I'm here. I'm just so committed to these schools. I really do love them with every ounce of my heart and soul. I feel I've got a calling to education, and I've always viewed school board as an extension of serving our families, because education is so important. And when we have a strong public school system, we have a strong economy, and we have a strong community that everyone benefits from, regardless of whether or not you have children in the public school system. You benefit from it when there's a strong public school system. And I'm just committed to serving. So it's been an honor to serve, and really enjoyed being here with everyone today.
That's so wonderful, Heather and Roxie. And you just hear the passion in your voice. You hear your commitment to the Wake County Public School System, making it better every day. And we so appreciate your service to Wake County. We are coming up on the hour, so we're going to close by thanking everyone for being on the call. We all know what an important election this is, so we want to encourage everyone to get out and vote. Early voting has started. You don't have to be registered through early voting. You can go in, you can register and vote the same day. You cannot do that on election day. You have to be registered. Also, early voting, you can go to any of the sites, so it doesn't make any difference. Just be sure and vote. All right, I'm Sig Hutchinson, your county commissioner, and I'm so pleased to have Heather Scott in District 1, Roxie Cash in District 3, Chris Haggerty on the phone or on the call from District 7. Thank you so much for everyone being on the call. Be sure and vote, and thanks for your time and being with us today.